for a week. I don't know if I'll wash it or not. But anyway, again, thank you for being here, and we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I do want to introduce two young people that are with us tonight. We invite the ROTC cadets from both high schools to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Cadet Benkera with us from Midwest City High School, and Cadet Tamonte. Did I do that? I get it?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. They're both seniors at Midwest City High School, and Benkera is going to go to OU once he graduates, Boomer.
Sooner.
Now, Mr. Tamonte is either going to Princeton, Yale, or Harvard. You must have a GPA that's off the chart. I qualified for Rose State. So. Again, thank you for being here. I would like to invite Mr. Sullivan to come down and lead us in the invocation, and the two cadets can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Would you bow with me, please? Gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this evening and this occasion of this council meeting, Lord. We're mindful and prayerful of being thankful this week, Lord, for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We're a blessed city. We're a blessed organization. We're a blessed state and a blessed nation. And Father, we pray that we live lives that bring glory and honor to the blessings that you have given us. Father, we thank you for this council and their willingness to serve. We're very thankful for them and their sacrifice that they make to conduct the business of this city. Father, we're thankful for the public safety folks who are out tonight keeping communities safe from fire and disaster. And Father, those who are keeping our streets safe, and those who are making sure we have clean water to drink, and that when we dispose of things, they're disposed of properly, Lord. We give you the glory and the honor for all of these great blessings, and mostly for the men and women who are preserving our freedoms that we enjoy in this country. And Father, what a blessing that is. We're so thankful for their sacrifice, their family's sacrifice. We ask that you give them peace and protection. Father, we thank you ultimately. We're so thankful, Lord, for your Son, Jesus, the blood that was shed on our behalf on the cross. Give you the glory and the honor, and we thank you very much for that sacrifice. In your Son's holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I do want to point out to each of you that these two young men are here on their Thanksgiving break. So thank you for being here. Okay, we got a lot going on in Midwest City, Oklahoma, and we'll start with community-related announcements. Mr. Lyon, I believe you have the floor.
Yes, sir, Mayor. So November 27th is recycling and trash for Thanksgiving holiday, which is Thursday, and this will be picked up on the preceding Wednesday, November 27th. Friday trash on the 29th, and recycling services will run as normally scheduled. And there'll be a call out on Everbridge to let the customers know that. The transfer station is closed on Saturday for the Thanksgiving holiday. The compost facility is closed on Thursday and Saturday for the Thanksgiving holiday, so assuming it'll be open on Friday. No? When will it be open? The following Tuesday? Okay, the compost facility will be open on Tuesday. Walk the Lights has been rescheduled to December 5th at 6 to 9 p.m. at Regional Park. So it's a time to walk the lights before it's open to the cars. So it's there'll be treats, crafts, and Santa will be there. The cost is $5 for adults, and children 12 and under are free. So please, hopefully it'll be a pretty evening and enjoy a walk through the lights. December 6th, we have the holiday open house on Friday at the Welcome Center. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There'll be free coffee and cookies and special gifts in the gift shop. We have many Oklahoma-themed ornaments and made in Oklahoma goods, so it's a great place for out-of-state family members to buy things that are Oklahoma made. Holiday Light Spectacular is now open through Christmas. The hours are Sunday through Thursday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then on Fridays and Saturdays, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., an extra hour. There's over 1 million animated lights, and it is free to drive through, and donations are accepted at the end of the drive. Cookies with Kringle is Saturday, December 14th at the Charles Johnson Central Park in Town Center. It's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There'll be live music, complimentary gift wrapping, arts and crafts, hot chocolate, and photos with Kris Kringle. So bring your families out to that. It'll be a neat event. And then finally, this Saturday is Small Business Saturday. So celebrate Midwest City's local independent small businesses by shopping early and often. For more information, look at our economic development homepage at themidwestcity.org. So it's a designated time to shop our small businesses, so please support those. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Ms. Eads, you have anything?
I just wanted to add, I'm not sure, Tim, if you said that, but also there's free gift wrapping at Cookies with Kringle.
Right.
So if you want to bring your packages and get those gift wrapped and you want to shop Town Center, it's very convenient. The 7th of December, Midwest City High School has a pancake breakfast with Santa, and there are still some tickets available for that. If you have any questions, you can contact me on that one. And then I just wanted to thank everyone who came out this past Saturday for Light the City. And thank everyone who participated. I know Sergeant Lee and others worked on that giant switch for the mayor to flip to light up the city. And so there was a lot of folks out there, and I think a lot of people had a really great time. So I wanted to thank everyone for their hard work and effort on that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order? It's a busy time of year for all of us, so and we've got a lot of great stuff going on in the city. Now, in recognition of Small Business Saturday, we do have a proclamation, so let me step down off the work. All you business owners, come down here. As many of you know, or you should know, that our small business entrepreneurship in this country built this country. Apple didn't start out as Apple. It started out in the garage. Microsoft, again, started out in somebody's basement. Dave Cathy, Oklahoma-grown Hobby Lobby, started out in his garage. Now look at it. That's the basis of our economy in this country. That's what makes our country great, is the fact that you can start out like that and end up a Microsoft or an Apple or a Home Depot. Not Home Depot, but Hobby Lobby. And if you just have the will and the strength to do it. So it's very important for us to participate and go to these businesses. Now, up here are just a select few of our businesses that could be here tonight. Rella Johnson and her partner Lori, they're from Oakey's Fabric Stash. Now, how Oakey's Fabric Stash came about was that Hancock Fabric closed. So these two girls saw a need and filled the niche. Now they're still building their business, but they've got a strong business going, and they saw the need in our community and filled it. Heather Gibson, she's with Experience Nutrition. She does the,
So we do nutrition for everybody as far as that goes. We just sell products to help everyone get healthy.
and she, again, saw a need here in our community and filled that. Daryl, Open Flame Coffee, one of our homegrown coffee places, just opened up on Air Depot. This is a beta for you, and if it's successful, you're going big, aren't you? Of course. And then, of course, I'd be remiss for not mentioning the Underground, another homegrown business. Started out small, now they've got 3 locations, one at Rose State, one at the clinic out at Tinker Air Force Base, and of course their location over at 1600 South Douglas. Again, a niche that started out just as an idea between Amber and her brother, and now they're growing and provide employment to college students as well as high school students. So it's very important that we participate and go into these businesses and support them. So therefore, whereas the City of Midwest City wishes to recognize our small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economies and community, whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30 million small businesses in the United States, representing 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States. And they are responsible for 65% of new jobs created from 2000 to 2017. Whereas small businesses employ 47.5% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and 94% of the consumers in the United States value the contributions small businesses in their communities make. And whereas consumers also indicated by the Small Business Saturday inspired them to go small, independently owned retailers or restaurants that have not been or before or would not have otherwise tried, and got through that. Some of these things are tricky. Whereas small business owners said that Small Business Saturday contributes significantly to helping their businesses stand out and improves their holiday sales each year. And whereas Midwest City wishes to support our small businesses, our local businesses that create jobs, boost our economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. So therefore, I, Matt Hoots, Mayor of Midwest City, you hereby proclaim November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday, and urge all citizens to support and shop at our small businesses. With that being said, some other small businesses in Midwest City are Blue Haven Firearms, Breeze Bristow, Century Martial Arts, which is a homegrown business, Cookies by Design, Drum Room and Wedge, Fly Fitness Bungee, and that looks like a trip to an emergency room. Huntington's Jury is actually owned by the in-laws of one of our police officers and moved here because of him being a police officer here. Jamestown District Discount Building, Midwest Wine and Spirits, Pelicans, which is the longest running restaurant in the metro area, privately owned. Penny and Irene's Flowers, Spencer's Barbecue, and Holy Guacamole. So please shop and go to those businesses. And I want to thank each one of you for being here today. And again, shop Midwest City. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into our consent agenda. These items are placed on consent agenda so that the council, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of the council, or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order. I would like to pull item 5
That's correct, Mayor.
for off the consent agenda for no action. That being said, Chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with the exception of C5.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We move into our discussion agenda this evening. I'm sorry? Okay, we are not going to take any action on number 5. Is that on consent agenda or the discussion?
Consent.
Okay, it wasn't clear on your sheet.
My question,
Okay, come to the podium, Bill.
you know me, Bill Bridges, 10300 Belmont. I really appreciate
Yes, sir.
the outstanding job that our code enforcement is doing. We have this on our agenda. How about our city inspectors? How about the other departments within Midwest City? We don't get no report on them. We don't get anything said.
That's a good point, Mr.
Miss-
Bridges.
Billy Harris and his outstanding crew do an outstanding job.
Yes, sir.
I don't see anything saying what this division is doing. Could we put some of these in here for y'all to approve?
You bet.
Thank
We'll
you.
make it happen. Thank you, Mr. Bridges. We appreciate it. Okay, the vote still stands on the consent agenda. We'll move into our discussion items, and discussion item number 1.
Discussion item number 1, PC 2025, public hearing with discussion and consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from C3 Community Commercial to C4 General Commercial for the property described as a part of the southeast quarter of Section 27, Township 12, North, Range 2 West, and addressed as 1145 North Midwest Boulevard. Mr. Harless.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Lyon. Just to address Mr. Bridges' comment before I move on to the staff report, we do put the building report on the webpage, so we'll just push that forward and bring it to y'all either as an item or additional information or something.
Or
So
further
however-
information. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we can talk about that.
Yes, thank you. This is a request to rezone 4.3 acres from C3 Community Commercial to C4 General Commercial. There is currently there is currently an unoccupied car wash on this property. The owner and applicant met with staff and expressed an interest in operating a car sales lot on the property. They stated that they would like to also enclose some or all of the bays, remodel the existing structure, and use it for car sales. As the property is zone C3, which allows limited outdoor storage and display, the applicant is making this application to rezone the property to C4, which does allow the use of car sales and outdoor display. Planning Commission recommended approval, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I only have one question to it, and I'm not against it, but since we're gonna spend a lot of money on the back side of that property, the park's gonna back right, is there anything that we should require them to do to make sure that that property doesn't adversely affect the park that's gonna come in there? Like a fence or something, I mean, I'm just asking you
Sure.
how that's gonna affect
You know if
it.
there's a fencing requirement? Yeah, there's a fencing, so there's a fencing requirement as they install this. There'll be a fencing requirement between the park and the car lot. Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing and public discussion. Does anyone have any questions? Is the applicant in the audience? Could you approach the podium and give your name and address, sir?
George Mendros, 5800 North Porter, Norman, Oklahoma.
So it's your intent to take the old car wash that's sitting there, it's been abandoned for several years, and close the bays, and then use that entire lot as a used car sales?
Partially, no, just the first 2 bays.
And that would be your repair shop, I assume?
Yes, or, yes, exactly.
What kind of fencing is that, a site proof or what?
It'll be site-proof fencing.
Correct.
Well, now that is close to the park and the the trail, the walking trail in
Yes,
that area.
yes, it is. It's adjacent to it.
Billy, what kind of requirements as far as materials, or do you know what it's gonna look like, or is there anything, construction standards they have to meet?
Any new construction will have to be brought up to the standards that we have now. But depending on how they choose to enclose that, I know there's been some discussion about that, and of course the staff reports points out that it's in a floodplain and flood zone. And so they'll have to meet any of those requirements. So in the floodplain, for example, to meet those, they'll either have to bring things up out of the floodplain, and also be able to, the electrical, for example, will have to be 1 foot above the floodplain area to accommodate that. But that's something we do on other properties as well.
Well, I'd like to say this, that park is being redeveloped, and there's an extensive amount of money that's gonna be put into that particular park, and to have something like a car lot or either an automotive on that particular side of that particular street where the park is at, I don't think that is a applicable place for a automotive shop.
You know, they already have the zoning. I mean, we approved a collision center across the street from our other park. I don't see
Which park is that?
on 29th and,
And you said across. This is not across, this is the same side of the park.
Right.
This
There's
is-
already automotive across the street, so.
Yes, but that's across the street. This is gonna be the same in the path of where people will be walking, trailway in a park, and we're gonna spend like
Can you pull up here?
hundreds of thousands of dollars repairing that park and renovating it, and to have a car shop on that side, I don't think that's the place for it. It should be something else that we can put there instead of automotive. That's just me.
Mr. Bundy,
Yes.
where's how far is the park boundaries from this property?
It's immediately behind it to the west.
There's no trails back there or right there, the trail's on back into the park, correct?
Sir, we opened a trail just back there recently, paved trail.
It's the same on the same side, and it would be sitting on the park is on the west side of the Midwest Boulevard. That would be the west side also, putting the automotives up there.
I guess I have a question.
Yes.
So it's my understanding, the car wash has 3 bays, correct? Or just 2 bays?
It actually has, I believe, 4 bays.
Okay, sorry. And that's
We're
what,
just using the first 2 bays.
I'm sorry, one more
We're
time.
just using the 2 first bays and putting a door on the first 2 bays.
So what are you gonna do with the other?
We're just parking and so forth, the actual cars that will be for sale.
Okay, so it's still gonna be open, like,
Correct, it's gonna be
A
open,
drive-through
just the
type
way
of-
it is right now.
I gotcha, okay.
Is there any further questions of the applicant? Does anyone in the audience have any questions? The chair to entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further
I'd
discussion?
like a roll call.
Okay, we can do that. Roll call vote, please.
Ward 1,
Aye.
2,
Yes.
3, 4,
No.
5,
No?
and 6.
Yes.
Mayor,
I
Yes.
think we're spending a lot of money for that park to have a automotive shop.
I will ask of you that this is gonna be a huge park renovation, and we've already started on it. And I would ask that you take the lead and dress up that property and clean it up and maintain it. Because that's the issue here, is we've got an area over there that's already blighted and creating issues, and right across the street from you. And we would ask of you to please do your very best to maintain that property, keep it clean, and stay within our codes.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Because I am very concerned, because I think that Midwest City is investing in so much money in the park, and you start putting businesses like car lots and repair shops, and you have cars sitting there, and you repairing, and they sitting out. I just really disapprove of it for that particular business being next to a park where we're gonna have a golf course and everything else, and that's just my point. I really disapprove of it.
Understood.
Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank
The
you for-
motion carries. Discussion item number 2.
PC 2028, public hearing with discussion and consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from A1 agriculture to R6 single-family detached residential for the property described as a part of the northeast quarter of Section 8, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, and addressed as a part of 2101 South Anderson Road. Mr. Harless.
Yes, sir. The applicant has requested that this item be tabled, and so it was tabled at the Planning Commission, and be requested this be tabled before the council, and it'll be heard at the next Planning Commission meeting, then be brought back before you.
You're requesting it be tabled or no action taken?
Bringing it back the same item, so I believe that's being tabled.
You can table it then.
Okay. The item's tabled. Next item?
Item number 3, PC 2029, discussion and consideration approval of the proposed final plat of the Ibanez addition described as a part of the northwest quarter of Section 5, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, and is addressed as 10309 Belmont Avenue. Mr. Harless again.
Thanks, Mr. Lyon. This item is a request to approve a final plat to subdivide a single 0.81 acre parcel into 2 individual parcels. The preliminary plat was approved in July of 2019. Waivers for public improvements were approved with the preliminary plat. And although it's not noted on here, this was, if the waivers were approved before that deadline was talked about with the council. So they were already in the process of subdividing this property. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Chair to entertain a motion.
Well, hang on, it's a
What-
public hearing.
No.
It's
What-
not a public hearing?
No.
What will keep them from doing another lot split?
They would have to come back through the process, and then we start running into width of lot issues, and
Yeah, it's not
it's
a public hearing.
size of lot, they'd be running into some issues.
You know what I'm getting at?
Yes, sir.
Can't happen. Okay. Motion to approve?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry. I guess my hearing aid is not hearing properly. I have one simple question. Simple, as you say, question.
What?
Why in turn did it
Hold,
take?
hold on, Bill. I've got an issue. Okay, Bill, I'm go ahead and allow your comment, but this isn't a public discussion on this, but go ahead.
Well, the thing is, you just asked for one on.
Well,
on item one.
it was outlined on the agenda as public discussion. This one's not, but go ahead. I'm allowing it. Go ahead.
It has taken, from what I can see, 4 months. Is it because Billy does not have the staff? Why in turn to
Bill,
make
the time does not have anything to do with, from getting to the planning commission to us with Billy's manpower. It's just a matter of the process. That's it. Has nothing to do with manpower.
And it takes 4 months?
Sometimes it does.
Thank you, Billy. I don't understand.
Well, I'll
Thank
explain
you.
it to you at some point.
Thank you, Bill. That being said, Chair, to entertain a motion. We do have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion item number 4.
PC 2030, discussion and consideration of approval of the proposed preliminary plat of the Mary Nolan Estate described as a part of the southwest quarter of Section 8, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, addressed as 2500 Hand Road. Mr. Harless.
And again, thanks, Mr. Lyon. This item is a request to approve a final plat to be subdivide a single 3-acre parcel into 2 individual parcels. The preliminary plat was approved in September 2019. Waivers for public improvements were approved with the preliminary plat. An HOA is not required as there are no amenities, private streets, detention ponds throughout thoroughfare screening, private parks, or floodplains within the area of request. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. Be glad to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Harless? Hearing none, the chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item is no action required by the council. This, you'll be seeing this again. So, item number 6.
Item number 6, and on item 5, we'll be bringing the whole council new information on item number 5 to help clarify some questions, and it'll be back. Item number 6, discussion and consideration of approval of the proposed preliminary plat of Ryan's Ridge, described as a part of the southwest quarter of Section 6, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, located at 10332 Southeast 10th Street. Mr. Harless.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. This item is a request to subdivide a single parcel into 14 individual parcels for single-family development. Access to the subdivision will be via the new street, Ryan's Ridge Court, off of Southeast 10th, and 4 lots will have frontage off Southeast 12th. The application is proposing water and sewer line extensions to serve all of the lots. The area of request is currently zoned R6, single-family detached residential. No variance to any of the requirements of the zoning ordinance for the development in R6 district will be allowed within this development. The Parkland Review Committee recommended approval of a fee to be paid in lieu of parkland dedication, Tree preservation will not be required with this subdivision. A water line extension will be required along Southeast 12th to serve all proposed lots. Half-street improvements along the frontage of Southeast 10th and Southeast 12th are required, as well as sidewalks. The applicant has requested a waiver to the requirement of sidewalks. The request is attached. Action is at the discretion of the City Council. Planning Commission recommended approval without the requested waivers.
The applicant's in the audience. Mr. Erdenbright, you want to come forward and address the council? Please say your name and address, please.
Yes, Kevin Ergenbright, 11524 Surrey Lane.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Erdenbright?
I have some observations. Excuse me. Back in fact, it was June 26th, I met with this gentleman at the request of Councilman Moore, I guess because I bug him so much about the water. There are some huge drainage issues that are there that I realize that you did not cause. And I think everybody, and I've been out there, I was out there on the 26th of June, and I've been out there, I think 3 more times since. We've recognized the problem, and we've basically told them or asked them, let's fix it, because we don't want to have, when we're off the council, whenever that may be, we don't want that problem to exist for the next people that are sitting in our seats. That being said, I understand and I realize from talking with you and talking with your engineer, I don't know if it was him or another guy that was out there with us, there's a problem there, and it has nothing to do with you, but if we were to grant the waivers, we're going to exasperate a problem that already exists. So as much as I would like to stand up here and fight for you for the waivers, I really can't, because I think if we don't hold you to the standard of fixing what you're building, and then in turn, my personal opinion, is there anybody that lives over there that wants to talk?
We have a couple in the back, yes, sir.
The Campbells.
I think as a council, we're in a position now where, and I don't know the answer to this, Billy, but so I'm going to ask you. You know this, and I'm not advocating for him or for the Campbells or whoever else. I'm advocating for us to fix it. And what is the best way for us to facilitate what this gentleman wants to do, which is put in some very nice homes that we need. I think no one disagrees that we could use this development. But we also don't want to make the problem worse for the Campbells and the other people that are over there, because I personally, I'm not an engineer, but I've seen it dry, I've seen it wet, and I think if we don't do something, when he builds it, the water's gonna come. So I'm asking you, because I don't know, how do we fix this? Has the city ever done anything like this before to kind of work with a developer that's coming in that we want? I mean, he's a member of our community. We want these houses, but we don't want them so that it affects these other people.
It has substandard improvements. Yes, I think I understand your question, and historically we have not required the developer to go downstream or upstream and do improvements, but what we have done is gone to the people downstream that have the issue now and try to make improvements there through capital improvements planning or program. And the way that's worked in the past has been if the surrounding property owners downstream will give the easements and participate for half of the cost, the city will then, the staff will bring that to the council or to the capital improvements committee and say, we have an application that's complete here that has the easements and are willing to participate on the improvements, and then we'll take and get it through the council and go out and team up with them to do the improvements. It'd be nice to be able to do that at the time that these improvements are being done so that they match perfectly and are done at the same time and engineered the same.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so just so I'm clear though, when you say go through the capital improvements and team up with the folks who are downstream, if they'll grant us easements and tie this all together, that's at the city's cost. That's not a cost that's borne by any of the downstream landowners, is that correct?
Historically, we've done it where the downstream participants would pay half of that.
So if we were to do what you suggested, and I'm just trying to dummy it down, we prove his deal. He goes in, and there's some requirements for his drainage system on, basically in the middle, between 11th or 10 and a half, wherever it is. He puts in a concrete flume, and then since we don't maintain grass drainage ditches, the only thing that we'll maintain is a concrete deal. He puts in his concrete deal. The city, in a perfect world, would go to the people that his property's going to affect, or it's already affected. It's the property, the water's going to come off and cause more of an issue. We go to them and say, okay, if you'll work with us and give us the easements without having to pay for them, and you're willing to work with us, we'll make an effort to go half and half. And we put in a concrete channel, ties into his, and that would more than likely fix the problem. And then we maintain the concrete channel that we put in. So if there's a problem there, we clean it, we fix it if whatever happens to it. Is that how I understand what you just said?
In a nutshell, yes, sir. And what we do is put it up into city standards. So what the design engineers say that it needs to be, whether it's a park section or whether it's a gabion baskets or whether it's a concrete channel, whatever the minimum standards are, what the engineers design it for, that's what we go with, and then we maintain it. Is that fair to say, Patrick?
Yes, Mr. Harless.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, what my suggestion was, and I might just back up a little bit because I want to thank these four people right here, along with Mayor Dukes, Mr. Councilman Byrne, Councilman Moore. You all worked real well with me, worked through some challenges, and I really appreciate it. You got four fine people here, and I appreciate them. Now, what I was thinking, and as I visited with Kelly, there was a laundry list of requirements, and I agreed with most of them, but the reason why drainage has came up is because that's a challenge area. And if I might, I don't know whether I want to change gears or not, but I've got pictures, which I think speak louder than words sometimes, but of this, but I don't know if we need them, but I got to looking, and there was a sidewalk requirement. August 14th, 2012, city ordinance revised and said you got to have sidewalks. And I started looking around town, and newer developments didn't have sidewalks. I was like, well, I don't understand. They're asking me to do these things, but they didn't make the others. So I didn't feel like that's right. I saw a lot of inconsistency. So what I was looking at also before I bought this property, there was a huge drainage problem, or appeared to be. When we bought it, you know, we started looking, still drainage problems. So as I started looking, in lieu of sidewalks, let me regrade that ditch line. Jeff Moore developed this area, did a great job. And the Campbells bought a home from Jeff in 1999. And on the side of their property, right off 12th Street, just continues to hold water. So I said, you know what? In lieu of sidewalks, let me, visiting with Jeff, regrade that ditch line. It's lasted 20 years. And it's a sodded ditch line. However, you know, it's just over the period of time, there's 174 acres drained through that back, the middle of my property to Avery. There's 60 acres drained right through the middle of 12th Street through that property. So over a period of time, it's just built up. So I thought, in lieu of sidewalks, how about if I do something that satisfied the neighbors and maybe it help the city out a little bit here too, and we'll just regrade that and we'll resod it. And talking with Jeff, thought, you know, that might not be a bad idea. I think that could work. So that was my proposal. If you're thinking of something different, I mean, I kind of like what you mentioned. I mean, if the city came in and they wanted to take and put a concrete line ditch, that might be a pretty good fix, you know?
Okay, but that presumes that you would put in a concrete line ditch with your development, correct?
I will not. Oh, well, no. Okay. I am doing detention, and off of Ryan Ridge Court, which is our street we're putting in, it will have a concrete flume into the detention.
Mm-hmm.
And from the detention, that goes on into this ditch line we're talking about.
Okay.
So we
So,
would,
but-
we would pick up from his, and it's kind of like a L, it would hook in together. So it would end up being seamlessly, hopefully it would end up being one long, like a T instead of, and the problem with the grass is it doesn't last.
But I guess my question is this, I mean, ultimately, we're in a situation where you're talking about grading out the ditch, which, I mean, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but that's kind of a temporary fix to the situation. I mean, it may be long-term temporary, but we're at a point now where, you know, we're dealing with drainage issues that come from, again, Pat used the phrase, so the sins of our fathers, so to speak, that weren't realized or weren't addressed. And so we have citizens in here on a regular basis complaining about the drainage issues in their neighborhoods and in their property. And I'm taking it that the lady that's standing behind you looking impatiently is one of those people. So I'm going to shut up and let her talk, but I guess that's my concern. My concern is merely just doing the grading is just going to kick the can down the road, and in 15 years or 20 years, someone else is going to be sitting in this seat and that seat and that seat, and they're potentially going to be hearing from the folks who live in your addition at that point that they've got drainage problems. So I guess that's my concern, and I would ask the lady to speak what she has.
Well, as I said last time we all met, when we first moved
Ma'am.
into that house.
Ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Campbell, could you state your name and address, please?
I'm sorry.
That's all
Carol
right.
Campbell, 10309 Southeast 12th Street.
Thank you.
Okay, we live here where the drainage they're talking about goes to the side of our house and behind our house. So if I understand what you were talking about the concrete business, then we would be having to pay for 2 parts of this concrete thing. And I have no idea how much that would be. I can tell you we certainly are limited with funds. About the grading, when we moved in, it was all nice, it was all sodded, it was smooth as it could be, and it flowed like it was supposed to. Then they put in all the houses in the Remington area, so that's more water that started coming down, and more silt, and more stuff, and it's coming from here, and from here, and this is the corner behind our house. It does not go anywhere anymore. I mean, it does, but it dries up, doesn't flow. So my concern is, first of all, I don't know why it was done that way in the first place. Why wasn't it concreted in the first place? I don't know. But my concern is, first of all, what she said about it wearing out if it's just graded and sodded. Actually, I probably won't live long enough to worry about that, but somebody else will. And the other part is the financing. I just don't see how my husband and I, on retirement incomes, could come up with a whole bunch of money to foot our part of this. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
I personally don't think she should have to come up with any money,
Can we even legally
you know?
do what he suggested, take the money
Because you're gonna cut a check for the rest of it?
in,
No?
in,
Okay. Just asking.
in lieu of sidewalks, or, I mean, how does it, or whatever? How does that work?
You're talking about taking the money in lieu of.
Or the service in lieu of, or what, can we even trade out like that?
That type of an action has been proposed by staff, but we do not have an ordinance in place allowing for that in lieu of what our actual ordinance requirements or zoning requirements are now. So no, Pat.
So if I'm hearing you right, even if we wanted to do it legally, we couldn't.
We don't have a ordinance in place allowing that type of a trade-off, no.
I got a question. Who's got the easement on that, Brandon? It seems like you showed me some signatures.
We can't hear you, Jeff.
Who's got the easement? The drainage easement behind the Campbells?
Downstream, it's dedicated to the city.
It has been dedicated to the city because it's not showing up on the courthouse records.
It's on the plat.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask a clarification question. So if I'm understanding what you're saying, Ms. Poole, it's that because we don't have an ordinance, we can't set this requirement, even though right now we are setting to approve the plat and the terms for this development. So we couldn't do it as part of the approval process in spite of not having an ordinance that addresses that issue. In order to approve the plat, this is one of the conditions that we do.
The council can override what is, if I understand correctly, what has occurred is a developer has indicated, here's what I'm willing to do. If the council wants to override that, you could make a motion requesting that you do a certain action in lieu of what our actual ordinance is. The difficulty we start having is then you have to look at, are you treating all developers in the same manner who come before the council?
And the other concern, if I think I've heard this before, is that we don't maintain the grass drainage ditches either. So, correct? It's still, it would be a private deal, correct?
That I don't know the answer to.
That is correct.
So
Go ahead, Patrick.
we would be opening up a can of worms to do it like that right now, since we don't have an ordinance and we're treating him different than others. We would be opening up a can of worms.
I would agree with that.
So if, playing the devil's advocate, the best way would be, in my opinion, is, and I know it may be not what he wants to do, is, I've been over there. It's a nice neighborhood. Those houses are needed on our market. I mean, I don't think anybody denies that. But we have a drainage problem in Midwest City, and I know you guys are working on coming up with a list. And I know we've been kind of beating you guys up about the impact fees and the fees in lieu of, trying to get that worked through. And this is a good example of why we need that, because we need to be able to go back and fix some of these things that should have been done differently, or the ordinances have changed, or maybe the engineering wasn't as, it didn't pick up on something, nothing malicious, it just didn't pick up on it. So, I mean, it would be my recommendation that, even though it may not be, we're splitting the baby, but we approve it, don't give them any waivers, and then give you guys direction to work with the homeowners over there, try to get the easements, and try to fix it where, however many years it is, they're not coming back to us and say, we were here in 2019, and you didn't fix it then, and now our house is getting flooded. Because personally, I know it's gonna cost the city a little bit of money, And I know it'll cost the homeowners a little bit of money, but I think this will fix, it'll be one place we can check off as a place that's fixed. And this will also, this is where we're trying to get to. If I'm thinking through the process, this is where we want to go in the future with being fair to both the developers, because like I said, we need this, and the people that are downstream. Their houses are being affected now, and we know it's going to be affected the day they start building. It's going to make it worse, or it's going to increase the problem. And that would be, Jeff, I mean, you know it better than any of us. What?
Brandon, do you know, I mean, from best I recall, it's a primary drainage channel, and Tim Johnson and those guys claim you do not need to improve a primary drainage channel. There's reasons why you don't want to.
Yeah, not to further complicate the matter, but let me speak to that. Primary drainage channels are designated by FEMA and the Corps of Engineers, and their intent is to keep those as natural as possible because it slows down water, collects sediment, it cleans the water. They don't want to see every channel and little drainage area concreted in the city. That's not their ultimate goal. So we do have some areas that do have concrete flumes in them, and pretty sizable concrete channels in some areas. But even if this moved forward and we came to some type of agreement, and the council's intent was to concrete this in, legally that may not even be an option. I don't want to promise that as something that would eventually happen. The Corps of Engineers does have jurisdiction over something like this. They may say that we would have to do some type of mitigation, turn some type of other channel back into an original woodland area just to be able to do a project like this. So it's not a very...
So the natural channel back behind, I've been over there as well, so the natural channel that runs currently behind there, we couldn't go back in and improve that?
Sir, I don't want to say that it would be doable, no, but what I'm saying is it would have to be, there's a lot more regulation.
And if we did, it could create more problems by the water running faster and...
Yes, sir. Then you'd have to look at the impact as you go downstream.
But Patrick, you can go in and clean that channel. There's
Yeah,
nothing to
and
prevent that.
that's right. It is a natural, it's already been modified. It's grass. The residents can go out there, they can do clean up to it, they can mow it.
Is that our responsibility, or whose responsibility is that?
It's the property owners.
Hey, hang on a second, I got a question. In the last 20 years, can you name a developer that's put in a big drainage channel?
No, sir, and that's part of,
Okay.
a lot of the...
Hang on, excuse me. So Windmill Farms, I had to put a huge channel in there. I can't remember, $150,000. But those are the kinds of projects that stop development. If I had to do again, I probably wouldn't even have done that one. That channel has been cleaned out by the city maybe once, two times max in the last 20 years. But my point is, somebody's going to go in and waste maybe $150,000 building a channel, and to clean a channel, the bottom's going to have to be, 6 foot wide minimum, or you can't get a piece of equipment in it. So, you're looking at 6 to 8 feet wide on the bottom with at least a little bit of slope, and then it's still hard for equipment to get in it. So in that case, there was a lot of money spent 20 years ago, or 15, whenever Windmill was done, and look at what that drove the project up a lot higher and would knock the next guy out of doing a development. When this grass line channel honestly worked real well for 15 or 20 years. It took a tractor, 15,000 feet of sod at 10 cents a foot, and it worked good for 15 to 20 years, as the Campbells said. They mowed it, they took care of it, everybody watered it, and it was a good community that took care of that channel. But what ruined the channel was when the addition to the north was built. I can't remember the name. Remington. The detention pond was screwed up. The water didn't get into the detention pond. It came across the street. It went down, and I think with Remington at that time, they had to put an underground pipe that split what's on the east side of Ergenbright's property, and a flume went down and it dumped in this creek right behind the Campbell's house. But what created the whole problem is when Remington was built, all of that silt came down and filled up right at the turn. It put about 2 or 3 feet of silt in. No one from Remington came down to clean it. No one from the city cleaned it. And from that time, the sod grows through the dirt, and the buildup continues to get higher and higher, and the flooding has just got worse since then. But the easiest, simplest fix is if the city could come in and regrade the channel. I don't think it'd cost that much. But the city's always, this is where we might differ a little bit. The city it's not our responsibility to fix the developer's problem. What's the city easement? And there's been 15 nice homes built in that area that has complemented the city and complemented that neighborhood. The city has benefited a lot by having some nice homes in there.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Moore, and you and I are going to disagree on this. I know we are. Why is it mine, hers, everybody else, everybody that's sitting in this chamber, why is it our responsibility to upgrade or fix something that if a developer had developed it correctly, instead of doing lot splits and all this other stuff that goes on, why is it our responsibility to go back in and fix something 20 years later? Because when I bought my house, I didn't expect it to last only 20 years. I expected my house to probably last my lifetime. So why should we ask the taxpayers to go in there and fix an issue that a developer should have fixed when it was built, and he didn't, or they didn't? And I'm not. I don't think it's funny, Jeff.
No, you missed the point.
I'm not missing the point. We can't go back.
The channel was built to city standards.
Okay,
they don't require a concrete channel. It's worked very well till Remington brought the silt down.
And all the other lot splits that went up north of there, they had something to do with it. And what my point is that when that goes on, what we're doing, and we're going to bite the bullet on some of this anyway. We're going in and fixing issues where personally I think the developer should have done it in the beginning, because
it wouldn't have worked. That's the part that you guys don't understand.
Mayor, can I have the floor for just a second? If I can finish?
Well,
here's the deal. I don't think we should have to go back to the citizens all the time and ask them to fix a problem because that it wasn't done. It may have been done up to standard years ago, but the home, it doesn't make sense. Because I can remember a statement being made, that drainage lasted 20 years. I can't believe it lasted 20 years. Well, if that's a true statement and the house was built, that wasn't done right for the homeowners that bought that piece of property, because they expected that home to be there longer than 20 years. And then for them to say, well, the drain, I can't believe it lasted 20 years. It should last the lifetime of the house.
Okay, gentlemen.
Let me say one thing.
In all fairness to Mr. Ergenbright, these are issues that we've discussed on this horseshoe many, many times, and we're not going to probably come to a resolution this evening on this.
Table it.
And it's an issue that, yes, sir, we are going to have to address. I think every one of us feel obligated that we're going to have to address. But in all fairness to Mr. Ergenbright, we need to get refocused on his request and decide whether or not we're going to approve this. Mr. Ergenbright, go ahead.
Mr. Councilman Burns, I was just going to mention, and I know Jeff said it was a developer. I don't believe it's a developer at all. Over 200 acres drain through those channels, 200 acres. And just off of 12th Street, you should see the debris that comes off 12th Street. And I probably should have passed pictures, but, it's unbelievable. So the soot and just the off of the road, the asphalt and all the different things and the gravel that come through off of 200 acres comes down through there. That's why that's sooted up. Developer might have probably caused probably part of that, but honestly, over 20 years of just that drainage, that's what it is. So
how do we fix this now with what Patrick threw into it?
I
How do we
don't
vote?
have a clue. My question to our two engineers is, according
You might
to
explain
the
how
plat,
the standard changes, but the
We've
federal
got-
standard changes.
we've got, I see the water flow.
That's what we're saying.
I see the detention that Mr. Ergenbright's agreed to put in, which should catch everything coming off of Ryan's Ridge.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and we had third-party, Johnson Associates verify those numbers and write a letter of recommendation.
And from reading this, Mr. Ergenbright has requested relief from half-street improvements and sidewalks, correct?
Correct.
He did request that, yes.
I believe the waiver was only requested for sidewalks.
I'm sorry?
I believe the waiver was only requested for sidewalks.
Only for sidewalks.
But also asking for a request for, we'll do curb and gutter, but requesting not to replace the asphalt because that street is beautiful. But in my other thing, and I might just mention, you know, when I was told sidewalks, I mean, I'm looking at developments that have been built the last 3 to 5 years, no sidewalks. And I'm looking, this is like sidewalks to nowhere.
Mr.
No
Ergenbright,
sidewalks inside. So
trust
that's
me,
what- yeah.
I think we pretty much agree that sidewalks to nowhere are something that we're gonna have to address, and we kind of agree on that requirement in some areas of our city should be required, but some areas it shouldn't. And we don't have a lot of argument. Where we're getting crossways is the half-street improvements, curb and guttering, and of course drainage detention.
And I
And
am
we've got
willing to do
we've got
curb
an
and
issue over there that you didn't create. You've shown good faith in trying to at least mitigate some of it by regrading it. We don't know that, well, we didn't, according to our city attorney, we don't have any ordinances in place to legally trade services.
Okay.
And so the dilemma we have is, how are we gonna be fair to you as a developer, and how are we gonna be fair to the Campbells and everybody else that lives over there, and not accentuate the current problem that exists?
Sure.
So it's not that we're trying to find that sweet spot and we ain't finding it. So, council, where do we go from here?
I would like to bring up too, my only other question, I know some of the homeowners asked, was your HOA restrictions, covenants. Are there gonna be restrictions and covenants?
Sure.
And the city requires this, right? Now,
They'll be required to be submitted with his final plat application.
okay.
Is there a way for us to approve what he's doing with the no waivers, and somehow the staff, because now we're getting maybe conflicting, where Patrick's saying that we may not even be able to put a concrete channel in there. So I mean, I'd hate to
Let me
disapprove it.
Let me try to clarify that. The standard changes, the federal government changes the standard. When Obama came into president, he waived a lot of the requirements for solid stream, or solid floor on a stream or a bed, concrete lined in some circumstances. And so that's why I always say it needs to be built to standard. And so when at the time that this goes through the application process, we will make sure that it's built to the standard that is required, not only with our requirements, but also with federal requirements or state requirements. And so those kind of change over, especially over many years, but they become less concrete in recent years, especially with the Obama administration. And so a way we might go forward, because you'll see this again. This is the preliminary plat, and so this gives the applicant, if you approve this, permission to go ahead and construct the public improvements as minimum requirements require. And so we'll.
With the waiver that's being requested also, correct?
If you all grant the waivers, then it'll be with the waivers. If you don't grant the waivers, we will hold them to non-waivers, so whatever you hold. And so we may be able to work, if it's non-concrete, we may be able to work with the ability to work with the downstream residents on this to try to work something out. I think we've all received the message that we would like to do that, and you'll see this again to ask if whether those improvements are done.
So what I'm hearing is that, number one, everything Ryan's Ridge is going to create is going to be taken care of by the detention.
Up to standard, yes. There's going to be some issues. Things are changing, and anytime things change, there's going to be some issues.
I understand that, but according to the engineer's reports that we have right now.
Yes, sir.
And everything indicates that everything coming off Ryan's Ridge is going to be taken care of detention.
Yes, sir.
You know, short of Noah coming back. Correct?
Correct. So, Patrick or
I'm sorry, can I just,
go ahead,
I
ma'am.
apologize.
Brandon?
I'm understanding that there is no guarantee, because again, once you alter the landscape, you've altered the landscape. The proposal is what the proposal is with minimum standards, correct?
They're meeting minimal standards.
Minimum
so there
standards,
is
but that
no
doesn't
guarantee.
mean that we're not gonna have a problem. So in fairness, I don't think that, it's fair to say, yeah, we're not gonna have a problem, the detention pond is going to take care of it. It meets the minimum standard as it's proposed.
And so
right?
staff will go out and try to make sure that when this site is graded, that all the silt fences are up. But I almost guarantee you that as soon as it's graded, we're gonna get a toad strangler out there, and then there's gonna be silt in the
Wash it,
neighbor's
right.
yard. And everybody's gonna say, well, you said this wasn't gonna happen. Well, that's just part of construction, and when it's all said and done, it should meet standard, and when it's all grassed in, the water will be mostly clear.
But if it's
We're not
built to
screwing.
standards and built to the architect or the engineer's specifications, it would be the expectation
Yes, sir.
that this would take care of the drainage coming off Ryan's Ridge, barring any unforeseen circumstances.
That is the
can't predict
intent,
those.
unless you all have
And
something
there's
to
no
add.
way anybody on this horseshoe can, or anybody else except for God, to predict that, correct?
Right.
Can we tie, I think I know where you're going with it, and I don't have a problem with it, but I also think that we need to look at, and if that means fixing an ordinance or changing a policy or whatever, and this may be a good test case, because we need to be able to do something to mitigate what the problem is that we already know is there. And if we bear some of the responsibility, we should step up and take care of that part of it, knowing that I know we have to be very, very careful about if we start it with one, the phone's gonna ring off the hook. But I think since we've already discussed it, everybody knows it's been out there. Jeff, myself, everybody around here knows that there's gonna be a water issue for the Campbells and the other people that live there. I think we owe it to them to see what we can do within what we're ordinance and our, whatever it is, to help mitigate that. Whether it be CIP, whether it be somebody going in there, the private property owners going in there and regrading it, sod it, whatever, but we need to come up with a plan to try to help fix that.
Let me ask you something,
We'll do
and
that.
this is where I'm a little
Councilman.
bit confused. Now, we go in and clean out bar ditches. We have. You remember the place
Yes,
we
sir.
went over on 4th Street? Bar
Correct.
ditches were jammed up and it wasn't draining, and I think we finally went over there and cleaned those out, and it cured the problem. So, this is a drainage issue that was approved. It's a natural drainage issue. So what prevents us from making sure that water flows again?
Thank you.
This is a very complicated answer, okay?
Obviously.
Engineers back me up on this. Open bar ditch the purpose for an open bar ditch that is to be maintained and cleaned by the city The primary objective there is to protect our roadway and to allow the public to traverse that roadway safely so that the water gets off of the roadway quickly, gets into the bar ditch, and ultimately gets to the tributary in the creek. Our objective with keeping those clean is to protect our roadway and to keep the public safe. It has nothing to do with protecting the neighborhood, the lawn. That's not the primary objective. When we grade a ditch, will we try to achieve some additional objectives and protect the homeowner's property? Yes, we will. But just keep in mind, when you clean a bar ditch, it's to preserve our asset, the street, and help the public traverse safely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So
Will the chair-
basically, we can't go in and clean out the drainage culvert behind the Campbell's house.
Once again, engineers, it's a complicated issue when you come to blue line streams. The Corps of Engineers won't let us go in there and clean and grade and scrape, remove vegetation because of the benefits that has on the environment and the water. We can't go in on blue line streams without special permits. I shouldn't say we can't. With special permission from the Corps of Engineers and our floodplain manager, we can do certain things to a blue line stream. But they don't ultimately, the engineers are right, they don't want us in there fooling around with those blue line streams.
But this isn't a blue line, is it?
I believe it is.
12th Street is, but the Avery is not.
You're the former stormwater quality.
Yes, sir.
It is a blue line stream.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Goes under 12th Street and goes further to the south.
I'm sorry it's so complicated, but like Billy said earlier, 15 years ago was actually the intent to improve those blue line streams with concrete or some other material. Now, the mandate is to leave them alone. And so that's why we have these areas where there's certain spots that are
I will
improved,
tell
some
you
are not.
this, like Pat, I've walked that from Remington all the way over to 12th Street. We own some concrete over there that we haven't cleaned in years.
Mr. Mayor, you and I have had
And
this conversation.
and you and I have had this discussion, and we have
We can do better at keeping our concrete line channels in good condition. You are correct.
Because that is also
We need to do better.
accentuating the issue that the Campbells are having.
Yes, sir.
And it's also accentuating the issue that he's having.
And over the next couple of budget cycles, that is going to be a priority for Mr. Line and myself and Mr. Streets to address and do a better job of maintaining the assets that these citizens and the developers have installed for us. We need to do a better job of maintaining that. That is correct, and we will do a better job in the future, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. I'm sure Mr. Everbright's ready.
Thank you.
Go ahead, that's what I've been trying to get to
Okay.
before we got on a tangent.
I make a motion to approve the proposal that is in front of us by Mr. Erkenbrock. That's how you say her name.
Yes.
That we do grant him a waiver on the sidewalks on 12th Street, but we don't grant him a waiver on curbs or drainage on 12th Street. No sidewalks on 12th Street, but he has to put in the drainage and the curbs.
Well, 12th Street's got a
No
curb.
problem, it's already done.
10th Street doesn't have a curb.
Can I maybe say one thing? So, on 12th Street, already has curbs. Half-street improvements already good. Brandon's already said no problem. On 10th Street, it does not have curbs. We're gonna put curb and gutter in. My only question on half-street improvement is I'm asking to not grind down the asphalt and put new asphalt, because that street is perfectly fine, but I'm putting curb and gutter. I even had Burns Paving come out and sent a letter. He said, and the city ordinance says substandard streets must be replaced. I said, Brandon, what's a substandard street? He said, well, there's really nothing that defines a substandard street. I said, okay.
Well, let me reword it then. Make a motion to approve as long as the drainage and the curbing on 10th and 12th Street, whether they're there or not, are up to standard, and that we give city staff permission to look at the location he's talking about where he doesn't want to tear up the street. And if it meets our standard, that we don't make him tear it up and redo it, because that's a waste of money. We shouldn't do that. And on top of that, I'm asking the city manager, through your staff, to try to deal with the Campbell's problem through the Corps of Engineers, whoever. And if we need to change the ordinance or do something, that we do it. Because this, like I said, we're getting hit that we're against development. We're not. We need this, but we don't need to flood people out as a result of it. And that's my
I
motion.
agree. Okay.
And so
You
just to
got
clarify,
that,
Second motion?
so does that include, is that waiving all sidewalk requirements or just on?
Just
is
on-
that, or
just
or
on
that include
12.
them in the
This
cul-de-sac?
is
on
10th
12.
10th and 12th.
Just on
I
this
think
one.
10th and 12th.
Just 10th and 12th, not the ones inside his development.
I'm asking for a waiver on all sidewalks. Is that-
Why do you need a sidewalk inside a development?
I'll answer that one, actually, in my opinion, because
I mean, in
I
a
am getting
rural area, larger
blasted
lots.
by constituents who do not have sidewalks in the neighborhoods. It also is an accessibility issue. So while it makes sense that people could potentially walk on the street, you're endangering pedestrians by walking on the street. So I don't agree with waiving the sidewalk requirement in the neighborhood. In spite of the fact that it appears that this piece of property is landlocked, it still gives ingress and egress throughout and transverse throughout the addition if we put sidewalks in the neighborhood. So if the chair will accept another motion, I move to deny the applicant's application as it's submitted, because I don't agree with all of the waivers that are being asked for.
Well,
If we want to,
I'm gonna have to overrule, and we do have a motion
And we have a
made by
second.
Mr. Burns. Now, you can ask him to
Already
amend.
second.
I was about to go there, actually.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want to revise that to include that the requirement is to have sidewalks within the street, or excuse me, within the addition, but waive the sidewalks on the perimeter, the main streets, 10th and 12th.
And that was my intent, that we waive the sidewalks on Southeast 10th, Southeast 12th, that we require the sidewalks on Ryan's Ridge Court, which is in the houses, and back to the street, leaving it up to you guys to decide, because there's no sense in him tearing up a street. If it's already up to standard, I think the ordinance is to get substandard up to standard. There's no sense in him spending the money.
Yes, sir, I understand. Is it still the intent to try to also make sure that we have easements downstream to the west?
Yes.
And if the applicant can go in and do some grading on there, and staff's okay with that, or to try to
You're talking
resolve
about
that?
outside on someone else's property?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to talk about that with legal staff before we.
And that was what
Yeah.
I asked him to look at, dealing with it. That's a separate issue, to try to fix that, because I don't
Mr.
think.
Erdenbright, do you understand what we're fixing to do?
Well, I'd like to kind of verify it. I know I had a request for no sidewalks at all. Comparable developments have received apparently a waiver, or I don't even know if it was brought up. According to the developer, he said they never mentioned sidewalks 3 years ago. But anyway, that being said.
Can I say one thing, Susan, and just think about this. These are larger lots. I understand in a very small development where the driveways are short, it's more important. But these type of lots, and I'm just speaking for, my experience on the larger lots of this size and greater, they really don't use them. There are cars, there's lots of parking. You don't have the same issues as you do in the original mile and some of these smaller lots. I'm not doing anything else in development wise, but I'm just asking you guys really need to think about this. And do you want some new homes? Do you want a product line out there where we can get a $200,000 price house? Because you're pushing really hard on shutting more development down and getting very little home construction out in the east side of inequality.
And I'm just saying, Jeff, in response, not just my experience with constituents now, but I've lived in one of these neighborhoods that was on a cul-de-sac, and owned one of the corners that was on the cul-de-sac, and we had sidewalks in the neighborhood, and in spite of the fact that you could park anywhere from 4 to 6 cars in every driveway, there were still people parked in the street. It was still an issue with kids playing in the neighborhood. It was still an issue with people walking through the neighborhood, but for the fact that we had sidewalks in the addition. So that's why I believe, and you know, if the consumer wants to speak to it, I mean, ultimately,
I
if
think
we're
we
gonna
need to get
split
back
this,
to the issue. We need to get back.
Ladies and gentlemen,
we are on the issue of the
I'm gonna have to
sidewalks.
make a point of order. We do have a motion on the floor. And I understand we have a second. So I'm gonna have to close off discussion. The motion is, can you read the motion, please?
Yeah, the motion was to approve the PC 2032 to allow a waiver for sidewalks, no sidewalks on Southeast 10th and on Southeast 12th, and to also waive the half-street improvements as long as the streets are up to the standard of the city that are there now, so that he doesn't have to dig it up and fix it right back to the way it was. But to deny the sidewalk waiver on the street in Ryan's Ridge Court.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for a roll call vote.
I had to write it down, so if I need to write it down for you, I will.
Okay. So Ward 1,
Hold on one second.
Because you didn't clarify that, but you're just saying you're only accepting the waiver as to the streets.
We're gonna have sidewalks.
Yes.
2,
Duh. Yes.
3, 5,
Yes.
6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Erdenbright, thank you for your patience, and I hope that you understand our dilemma as a governing body. And ladies and gentlemen on the horseshoe, I want to thank you for the discussion and the decorum that you maintained throughout this. This is a very contentious issue and something that we are going to have to come to grips with as a governing body. So again, thank you and your son for being here. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing your houses.
Thank you very much, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You
okay?
too, sir.
Thank
Mayor, I'd like to ask, can we think about having a tour and look at some of the areas where we probably need sidewalks and where there can be sidewalks and where they cannot? Do a tour, or either could we do a study and show some of the
We're going to
areas?
have to do that, Miss Allen.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
So, okay, here we go. Thank you, guys. Have a good Thanksgiving. Okay, is everybody good, or can we go?
I'm ready.
All right, discussion item 7.
Discussion consideration of passing and approving an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 28, offenses miscellaneous, Article 5, offenses against public peace, Section 28-90.1, disorderly conduct, establishing an effective date and providing for repealer and severability. Chief Claves.
I don't have anything to add unless there's questions from council. It's gone to the ordinance committee and puts us in compliance in regards to drones. Thank Heather Poole and everyone on the committee for bringing this to our attention and putting it in our ordinance. And thank you to Chief Porter for attending that committee for me.
Move to approve.
Second.
We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item.
Discussion consideration of passing.
Good job.
And thankful to Greg Hackman on this one as well from Community Development.
You're back.
You're up next.
He helped us. Yeah, you can just stand there, Brandon. Discussion and consideration of passing, approving an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 28, offenses miscellaneous, Article 4, offenses against property, Section 28-54, trespass, establishing effective date, providing for repealer severability.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Oh, wait a second.
Go ahead, you want to explain?
Seen
to
these
us?
once, I mean,
I have a motion and a second. You're overruled, Mr. Burns. I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Chief, you're free to go.
Besides, I mean, Chief's not the one in this circumstance who's asking us for $1.1+ million. That's Chief Norton over there in the corner, so he's the one to watch.
Hey, in all seriousness, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and great job on Mike Bauer's retirement today. We're going to miss him greatly, and you all did a great job with that today.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Next item.
Item number 9, discussion consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 32 Peddlers and Solicitors of the Midwest City Code by amending Article 3 Peddlers and Solicitors, Section 32-60 Food Trucks, license required, and providing for repealer and severability and declaring an emergency. Mr. Harless, are you handling this, or Kelly, or
Sure,
Sarah?
I'll take it. I'd certainly like-
Actually, this is mine, so if you got any questions.
All right.
Move to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and I got a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you very much for all your hard work on that.
Do we need to vote on the emergency?
Yeah, if you do.
Yeah,
pass
that's
the
what I was fixing to get to. Yes, sir?
If you do pass the emergency, code officer will be out tomorrow to work the state.
Move to approve on an emergency basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stroh.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor on including the emergency indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. You got your job tomorrow.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Next item.
Item number 10, discussion, consideration of approving the 5-year council plans and priorities to be distributed to the public. This is a result of our retreat that we had back in August, I believe. Claudia Coos did a good job taking all our information from staff and putting it in this format.
I want to make a comment on this too. There was a couple of us that were really the ones that pressed really hard to get this done. And I read a lot of plans that other communities had put out. And Claudia, this is as good, if not better, than most that I've read, because it's concise, it lists what we're gonna do, and you can read it. You know, some of them are 100 pages long, that could have been condensed into what she did. So I wanna compliment, where'd she go?
She's not here.
Well, please let her know.
We will, sir. We will. Thank you. Councilman Byrne.
Yeah, thanks. That was a good retreat. I was told by a constituent today that this council has a vision, and we're moving forward with that vision, and we're no longer a rudderless ship, and we've got a direction that we're going to take this city, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on that.
Mayor, this will go out to all the city utility addresses in Midwest City.
Awesome.
So everyone in the city will have a copy of it.
Okay, item number 11.
Move to approve.
Oh.
Motion to approve.
Stand by. I need a motion and a second. Do I have it?
Yep, here.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If we read the
Abstentions?
item, can they still buy the truck? If we don't read the item, okay.
Did we forget the?
Motion carries. Next item,
Read the item.
up for bid.
Do we need to read the item? Hang on, Mayor, we probably should read the item just to,
Huh?
we didn't, let us read item 11.
We hadn't got to
Oh.
11 yet.
Okay.
We were still on 10. Catch up, Miss Attorney.
Just got me confused.
It's what we pay you for.
Item 11, discussion and consideration of approving the purchase of one new E1 fire ladder truck with Chief Fire and Safety, Inc. for a total price of $1,148,000 per state
$1
contract.
million.
1 million, I'm sorry, did I say 1,000?
You did.
1 million.
Ooh, I was gonna say yes.
Wishful thinking. $1,148,000 per state contract, SW 0240.
Chief, you
Chief
know how
Burton.
many police cars that could buy.
I know, I realize.
Y'all's toys are expensive.
I know, we hadn't figured out how to put water in a cop car yet.
Chief, you want to explain
Okay.
this, about how this truck will,
Bucket brigade in the back, in the trunk, yeah. So, what we have is we've tasked a committee with the fire department to go, apparatus committee, to look out. One of our geo bond projects was for an engine and an aerial. We went out to bid not too long ago for an engine, and contrary to what has happened in the past, the market is very good and frugal, and so there were no engines that were already in the process of being built for us to be able to get a bid on. That's why you saw the 365-day bid. When they were up there for their pre-conference, prior to them going to the pre-build conference, we had tasked the committee to looking at what size ladder truck we need. Midwest City Grows, we currently have ladder 1 that's 75-foot aerial, and then Station 6 has one. We just run it as an engine, but it still operates as another 75-foot aerial. So we know that some of the new development we have, some of the hotels are off a little big. We needed to figure out what was the right size. Sorry, your crews are out right now. We had to figure out what was the best size to be able to reach the capacity. They went out and looked, and they brought in Oklahoma City, had a 95-foot aerial. They drove it around the city, looked at it, set it up around the hotels there in the new district. Bless you, Ms. Eads. Set up the aerial, and were able to reach them within working range to get occupants out safely if we had to. Subsequently, while they were at the factory, they were looking at some ladder trucks while they were there for the pre-build on the engine, and there is one that's in the build line now. So they'll put 8 trucks in line, those that they have, when they got an 8th one coming. If they don't have a name on the truck yet, they go ahead and build it out. It's called a spec truck. We're early enough in the market to get some changes to it taken off, the breathing air, a generator, some stuff that we really don't need, and make it really a Midwest City truck. So we're early enough in the process. So that's why we're before you now, to try and get this truck approved, and we have it now because if we wait till after December 1st, we have a price increase that goes into place, and it's about $25,000 just on this truck. So we're going to be using some of the geo bond money that was allocated for that, along with some other capital money that we have, because we had $900,000 budgeted for the aerial truck with some price increases that have already occurred, and looking at what the real need assessment that we need with this 75 or 95-foot bucket truck. It'll be a big truck, tandem axle truck that'll be, when the mayor started the police department here, we used to have an old truck, so now we're going to be back to having a bucket truck that we can operate off of. So it'll be a much needed asset for us.
What did you do with the horses when he got on the department?
What did they do with
Did they pull the cart with the horses when he got on?
Don't start throwing those rocks.
Yeah, they were.
Chief, we'll actually get this truck in before we will the engine truck, because
That's correct,
it's further
Mr.
up the line
Mr.
on the
Lyon,
build.
it's already in production now. They did not give us a delivery date on that yet, but we know it's in line. Once we approve it, we'll send the crew up there, guys up for pre-build again, to make the necessary changes to make sure that the air's not on the generator. Put the size water tank that we want on there for our service, and then they'll give us an estimated delivery date at that time. But it's well within the 365.
Thank you, Chief, very much.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief. Have a Thanksgiving.
Thank y'all, you too as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, move into the new business public discussion of our agenda. Does anyone have anything to bring before the council?
Mayor, if I might, I'd just like to address the question that was asked of staff earlier by Mr. Bridges, why there's some of our items come up that are public discussion and some of them are not. When there's a zoning application that's made, we send out notification to the surrounding property owners so that we can get feedback. It's something that the council has a lot of leeway on and the courts have given us that leeway to control zoning within our community. Plating process and the preliminary and final plating process that you saw those come through tonight, they either meet or don't meet the requirements, and you all act on those. It's not really what the surrounding properties have something to say, so that's why they're not open for public comment at that point. I just want to make sure that everybody
But we
understood
still
that.
have to allow discussion by our constituents, and I think that's what he was getting confused, and I'm sure I'll have ample opportunity to explain that to him.
And we even notify the surrounding property owners,
Sure.
as we do in the zoning, then we're not required to give people a chance to come out and speak on that.
We understand that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, nobody has anything before the council. We've got 2 items for further information. You can review that at your leisure. If there's no other questions, comments, or anything for the good of the order, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We have 2 discussion items on this agenda. Mr. Lyons.
Discussion item number 1, discussion consideration approving the minutes of the regular November 12th, 2019 meeting as submitted.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Discussion consideration accepting the report on the current financial condition of the Sheraton Midwest City Hotel at the Reed Center for the period ending October 31st, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. New business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we're hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority, or Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority, I'm sorry. We have 2 discussion items on this agenda.
Discussion item number 1, discussion consideration approving the minutes of the regular November 12th, 2019 meeting as submitted.
Move to approve.
Motion approved.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 2.
No action.
No action needed. We now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing none, we do have an executive session attached to this agenda. Mr. Lyon.
Discussion consideration 1, entering into executive session is allowed under 25 Oklahoma Statute Section 307B3 to discuss the purchase or appraisal of real property, and 2, in open session, authorize the general manager administrator to take action as appropriate based on the discussion in executive session.
Move to adjourn from the Memorial Hospital Authority agenda and resume the executive session after completion of the remainder of the agenda items.
I would ask the council's indulgence and go ahead and recessing the hospital authority and calling to order the Economic Development Authority, because there's an executive session attached to that, and go into executive session on both the items.
Item B, executive session discussion and consideration of entering into entering into executive session is allowed under 25 Oklahoma Statute 307C11 to confer on matters pertaining to economic development, including the transfer of property, financing, or the creation of a proposal to entice a business to remain or locate within the city, and 2, in open session authorizing the general manager administrator to take action as appropriate based on discussion in executive session.
Okay, I'm going to need 2 votes. 1, to go into recess from the municipal authority, also calling to order the Economic Development Authority, and then a motion to go into executive session on the Economic Development Authority.
Motion to go, motion to recess for executive session.
Whatever I said, right?
Hospital
Yeah.
Authority.
Everything that Murr said, motion.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in executive session. We will have to come back to the council chambers afterwards.
We need, E made the executive session motion. Who would like to second that?
Oh,
Well, Pat did.
I'm sorry.
We'll come back and vote when we get done from executive session.
We had
So
to
we will come
recess
back.
and then call to order.
We
We
will
got
not-
it covered.
We will not be gone long.
So we
I
don't
don't
have to come
think.
back, right?
And you can take a potty break if you need
Sarah,
to.
we don't have to come back up here.
We're just going in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're going into the small room.
We're going into the
been trying to leave. Come back. Come back.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, you stay for the rest of this?
Come on, Jeff.
Jeff
Get in
does
here.
not have a life.
business updates to share. I things come out online before I actually share them. So, I get told all the time that I'm completely useless.
Sometimes I talk to them, Susan, and they don't say anything before they file their building permit to me.
Okay. But I did tease her. So we're almost, we're missing some people.
I'm gonna use this hammer.
Oh, that's just me over here. Where's everybody at?
We need Tim and Jeff. Tim and Jeff. Oh, all right, here.
I'll call this meeting back to order.
Okay.
We're back in session and the chair would entertain a motion to proceed.
Motion to approve the action that was discussed in executive session and give the mayor and other people permission to proceed with the contract.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We're hereby adjourned.
No, we
No,
gotta
we
do the
have two
Economic
discussion
Development
items.
Authority.
Oh, whoa,
That was Hospital Authority.
that was hospital authority.
Hospital authority didn't need any action, but that's okay.
So do we need to come back into session for that?
Yes.
Okay, I need,
We're not done yet.
hold on. Okay.
We're returned back to economic development at, what time is it?
25 years.
8:25.
8:25.
8:25, we're back in session, economic development,
Okay.
and no actions needed on the executive session.
No, we don't.
No.
So now we go to discussion item 1.
Then the discussion item number 2 on the,
We
1.
need discussion item 1 first, to approve the minutes.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's slow down, take a breath. Discussion item number 1 on the economic development.
Discussion and consideration of approving the minutes of the special November 12th, 2019 meeting as submitted.
We got Alan.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Second discussion item.
Discussion and consideration of entering into a contract to purchase Block 2 of Heritage Park Mall subdivision of Blocks 3, 4, and 5 of Miracle Mile addition to the City of Midwest City, Oklahoma, AKA 6909 East Reno Avenue, from Transform Celco LLC for $1,650,000 to authorize the payment for the purchase price and closing costs, to authorize the chairman to execute all documents associated with the transaction.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. New business public discussion. Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned.
There you go, now you're good.
Yeah, we got it.
Now you got it.
Everybody have a blessed Thanksgiving and a safe one.
I pardon you.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You opened up the door.
Will you be available tomorrow to sign?
You bet. You come.